evening, everyone. You are watching Direct Line. Our special guest today, man who needs no introduction at all, known as the heckler from hell for opposing teams. The only man who got term limits pushed through in Montgomery County in 2016 by overwhelming margins. Also got the tax limitation event passed not once but twice. Robin Ficker, he delivers for everyone, and now he is running for United States Senate. Welcome to the show, Robin Ficker. Our hosts tonight are Jackie Saxton and Mark Conklin. Take it away, guys.
Thank you, Dwight.
Well,
I'm trying to think of another person in Maryland politics. There are only a very, very, very few who can be described with a single name, with just their first name. And forgive me, he's been in forever. Ben doesn't quite get there. I'm sorry, but if you said Ben, people would say who. And the same thing with our other senator, what's his name again? But Robin Ficker, all you got to do is talk about Robin. So, Robin, how have you managed to get such a high name recognition over all these years?
Well, I've been working for the people of Maryland. I am all Maryland. And one of the central themes of my Senate campaign is to achieve energy independence for Maryland. We have a hidden jewel here. It's called the Calvert Cliffs nuclear plant. It provides 36% of Maryland's electricity, 80% of Maryland's emissions-free electricity. It serves over 1 million homes, and I propose that we double that plant, bring jobs to Calvert County and southern Maryland, and also help with the tax burden there, and provide electricity for 2 million homes, and also thousands of EVs that we're going to be bringing into Maryland. We need to double that nuclear plant in Calvert Cliffs. It's been operating since 1975. There's never been a problem. There's never been something going wrong with the plant. That's what we need to do, and it's an all Maryland project. We need to get the Democratic Party in Maryland behind the Calvert Cliffs expansion.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they're all about green energy, and as you were telling us last week, nuclear power plants don't give off any kind of emission, so they certainly fit that green agenda that the Democrats really are so fond of.
And it doesn't matter if it's cloudy. It doesn't matter if it's at night. It doesn't matter if there's no wind. It's operating 24/7 as it has since 1975.
So I'll tell a quick story. One of the first people I met when I got involved in Maryland politics was Robin at a Pizza and Politics, and he was collecting signatures for a ballot initiative in Montgomery County. So your legend for being out there collecting signatures, you're not afraid of the grassroots work. How has that helped you so far in your campaign for Senate?
Well, I enjoy meeting Marylanders. I believe that every Marylander knows more about at least one subject than I do. I believe that the smartest person picks the best brains. And I've placed 25 matters on the ballot since 1974 by collecting over 10,000 valid signatures for each. And these ballot questions have received more than 2.5 million votes. Term limits, property taxes, keeping garbage dumps and sewage sludge trenching out of residential zones. And it really has held the feet of the free spending Montgomery County government officials to the fire, because they want to raise taxes each and every year. We just got a 5% property tax increase. They supported the increase in the state gas tax, a 10% increase, which has put our Maryland gas tax 18 cents a gallon higher than Virginia's. No wonder Amazon, Raytheon, and Boeing have moved to Virginia instead of coming to Maryland.
Robin, over the years, you've been a real advocate for economic development in Maryland. And I know you've talked about it. And every year, you frankly have had a different focus. So we've talked a lot about Amazon headquarters, HQ2. You've also talked about, this year you're talking about the CHIPS Act. So tell me a little bit about what your thoughts are about that.
Well, the CHIPS Act is a $54 billion federal project, a federal legislation. So far, there have been 15 15 U.S. manufacturing plants started to build semiconductor chips in the United States. It used to be that Maryland and the rest of the United States constructed about 40% of the world's semiconductor chips. Now it's only 9%. Most of them are built in Taiwan, which is under the Chinese threat. So we need to build such a plant in Maryland. If there can be 15 plants in the U.S., if Chuck Schumer, that wise old fox, can get a plant for New York, why can't the Maryland delegation land a chips plant for Salisbury or Hagerstown, a place where we have many very bright Marylanders?
Yeah. So your first piece of literature that you put out for this campaign was Bye Bye Ben. So I don't know if you willed it into existence that he was going to step down and not run for re-election, but what's your take on the Democrat side of the field going into next year?
Well, I think a leader is someone who decides he wants to help the state, help the people of Maryland before he finds out who else wants the job. And I said that I was running before I knew that Ben was going to, quote, retire. I think the real reason that Ben left was because of term limits. He saw that term limits passed in Baltimore City was 73%, in Montgomery County was 70%. They have it in Prince George's County, the other third big Democratic jurisdiction. He'd been in office for 58 years. He's turning 80. He was elected when he was 21. So he thought the voters were going to term limit him, and he took the easy way out. I think that now we have some Democrats running, and they'll be talking to each other, but I'm going to be promoting what can be done for the people of Maryland. I'm all Maryland. I'm really not focusing on these Democrats who are going to be lighting into one another.
So talk to me a little bit about what you see are the top issues. What are Marylanders telling you are the things that are the most on their concern this year?
Well, bringing more jobs to Maryland. That's another, that's a top issue, certainly. Apple just decided to build a $3 billion campus, not in Maryland, in North Carolina. Facebook just decided to sign the largest lease ever in Austin, Texas history, not in Baltimore. The story of Amazon. Google, one of Google's two founders, Sergey Brin, graduated from the University of Maryland. Google spent in 2022 spent $9.2 billion on capital projects, not $1 in Maryland. They have 32 regional headquarters in the United States, not one in Maryland. We need to bring huge companies like that into our state. Microsoft has only 1/50th of its space in the Washington area in Maryland. Intel just decided to build the largest private investment projects ever in not one, but two states, in Arizona and Ohio. A $20 billion semiconductor plant by Intel in Maryland would have done wonders. It would have transformed Baltimore, erased many of the financial problems there. EV batteries. Obviously, there's a trend there. We're going to need EV batteries built in the United States, but Hyundai and Toyota are building their new plants, not in Maryland, but in Georgia and North Carolina. Why isn't our congressional delegation looking out they're rubbing shoulders and elbows with these industry leaders each and every day? Why aren't they looking to bring some of these jobs to Maryland? And that's what I plan to do. And I mentioned energy independence. I think we have to double the plant in Calvert Cliffs, the nuclear plant. I also want to fight inflation. I'm going to look at wasteful spending. I think we need a balanced budget. My home equity payment has gone in the last 18 months from $600 to $2,000 because of the increase in the interest rates, the mortgage rates. We need to be very careful with the taxpayers' dollars, and I don't think that really the Maryland delegation is known to be taxpayer friendly, and I intend to be. Also, we did a poll. We did a Gonzalez poll recently, and one of the questions was, do you favor opting out, letting parents of K through 3 opt out as far as certain parts of their children's education is concerned. 91% of Marylanders who responded to our polls said they were in favor of parents of K through 3 having opt out. But Montgomery County, there's not one elected official who is in favor of letting these folks opt out. Parents are in charge of their kids. These are not state children. The parents should make the best decision for these very young kids. I have grandchildren that age, K through 3, and I want to make sure that my daughter and her husband, who happens to be head of recruiting and personnel for the Seattle Seahawks, I want to make sure that they make the decision for my grandchildren, not some people in the school board who really don't know my kids very well at all. We have to give power to the parents. So that's another issue. Also, I want to secure our southern fentanyl border. Do you know that in a recent year, we had over 2,500 Marylanders under the age of 25 die from fentanyl overdoses? So, you know, we need to cut off the supply of fentanyl. I'd be in favor of moving hundreds, if not more, administrative law judges right down to the southern border where they could decide some of these immigration cases within 1 week of these folks trying to enter the country. We need to close down the fentanyl border and not allow these drugs, which are killing more people in the United States each year than died in Vietnam or die in automobile accidents. Why hasn't something been done to shut off this fentanyl faucet? Just this year alone, we've confiscated more than 20,000 pounds of fentanyl at the border.
So one of the unique roles of being a U.S. Senator has to do with approving or rejecting presidential appointees to various agencies. So based on what you've been seeing, and hopefully come 2025, you'll be working with, or the senators will be working with a Republican administration. What would you be looking for in people who are getting appointed to these positions?
Well, first of all, I'd look for someone who I thought would be friendly to the folks of Maryland. I'm all Maryland, and that would be really the number one thing I would look at, someone who would use Marylanders' money wisely and perhaps bring some benefit to the people of Maryland directly, someone who might be interested in making sure that our Chesapeake Bay was super clean, someone who might be able to bring about the federal fund contribution to build a new Bay Bridge, for instance. Those are the types of things I would look at. Who's going to help our state, and then who is going to help our nation as well.
So do you have particular committees that you'd like to serve on in the Senate?
Well, you know, I think I would do a good job on no matter what committee I was on, because I believe in perpetual inquiry. And I think that, you know, I look at things that have never been done and say, why not? So I would be a presence and a very inquisitive presence and indefatigable presence on no matter what committee I'm on. I really have an open mind as to the committees, and if the leadership had ideas where they thought I might go, I would certainly consider that. But if I decided that I could help Maryland on one committee more than others, that's where I'd go.
So obviously Maryland tends to be a little bit less Republican friendly when it comes to statewide races. However, we've seen Maryland win statewide races as Republicans before with, you know, Bob Ehrlich, Larry Hogan. What do you think is the key to winning a statewide election as a Republican in the state of Maryland?
Got to get more votes than.
I think.
Robin, I don't know if you muted yourself or you lost your audio.
Hold on.
Not very good at reading lips.
Yeah, let me see something. Let me text them.
Robin.
I like the answer he gave. You just got to get more votes.
The problem is it makes for a difficult follow-up question, doesn't it?
How do we vamp this one?
Yeah, I know. Well, I won't ask you, Jackie, what you think he's saying.
For him.
Yeah.
In the meantime, let's see what happened in the news today. Mark, what's your opinion on the different presidential candidates who are trying to get enough votes or individual donors to make it on the debate stage? That hit 40,000 unique donors. 200, I think it has to be at least 200 unique donors from at least 20 different states.
Well, it's interesting. This is a product of the RNC's. So, Robin, if you can hear us, you're muted, so we couldn't hear what you were just saying.
Well, I don't think you can hear us either.
Robin.
Can you hear us?
Nope, not yet. Try there. While we get his audio fixed, back to you, Mark.
Yep. This is where it's helpful to have commercials that we can run. You know?
Cut to commercial.
Cut to commercial.
I could totally go do it.
Well, let me tell you, we are the MDGOP and Friends of Governor Ehrlich are doing a 20-year salute to Governor Ehrlich coming this October. Great event. You can go to our club site, or you'll be able to get to we'll have it on the state party site in a matter of time. We'll have that up there.
I think I'm back on now.
There we are. Good.
There you are, Robin. Perfect.
You know, whatever you were saying, we had no follow-up because we can't lip read.
But you sounded really passionate about it. So the last thing we heard you say was, yes, to win a statewide race in Maryland, you have to get more votes than the Democrat. So
right.
Everything
Okay.
that was lost.
Okay. So what I said was, I believe I can get a substantial part of the African American population vote in Maryland. I will be the first statewide elected official who walked with Dr. Martin Luther King in the 1963 March for Jobs and Freedom on Washington. I was appointed to be the first general counsel for the National Caucus on the Black Aged by Rosa Parks. I was good friends with Muhammad Ali and worked out with him 100 times. Chucky Barkley said I was the #1 fan in the NBA. And I've represented about, I'd say, 25,000 African Americans in every court in Maryland, defending their rights, standing up for these folks, trying to help them when oftentimes they had no other friend in court. So, I think I have a good record with this population as I have had all my life.
So how do you get that message out there? I know you're very fond of mailers, and you mentioned you have a couple that are dropping soon. Are you planning to work on getting a commercial out there too, or social media ads?
Yeah, we're going to be well financed, and we're going to be getting the word out to the voters. First, of course, we have to surmount any possible opposition in the Republican primary, which is coming up in May. But then, believe me, I work every day. I try to do something positive for Marylanders every day, and I'll outwork any opponent that we have.
So one of the things we were talking about, I think before the break too, was a little about economic development and what you can do as a senator. And I think before the show, we were talking a little bit about the effort to get the FBI headquarters in Maryland. So what are your thoughts about that? And what could a senator do to make that happen?
Well, I believe that Maryland senators should have made that happen a long time ago. It just shows their lack of clout. The sites that we have in Maryland were close to Metro, and that means that people would have little or no trouble getting to the FBI headquarters. I know that now they're considering a place near Quantico in Virginia, even in Alabama, but I just think it takes a lot of one-on-one work that the Maryland legislators, Maryland members of Congress haven't been able to do. When I think of the Maryland delegation, I think of the old saying, hey, if pro is the opposite of con, what is the opposite of progress? And this answer This time the answer is Congress. They haven't been doing the work. And, senators are only in session for 160 days a year. The average Marylander works 260 days a year. I'd be spending that additional 100 days trying to locate that FBI headquarters in Maryland where it belongs, where it can provide added law enforcement and advice in Maryland. It can help keep this fentanyl out. It can provide good jobs. And these folks in the FBI headquarters, they're upward mobiles. They're rising stars. They all have bright kids. We want these folks to be Maryland citizens, and I'll do everything in my power to work and bring them in. Why hasn't that been done? If I'd have been there, it would have been.
So one of the things that's been really hot in the news right now is the mistrust that people have of agencies like the FBI because of their coordination with suppressing conservative voices on social media and things like that. And you've had Christopher Wray testifying in front of Congress and basically not answering any questions. So how would you work with these agencies to hopefully clean out any bad actors, but also to help restore public confidence in these agencies?
Well, it's a matter of leadership. It's better to light a candle than to curse the darkness. I'm not going to be attacking them. I'm going to be providing a shining, honest example for the people of our state. And they would know one-on-one working with me that if I said something, they could take it to the bank. And I think it's just a matter of the reputation of our leaders. If the leader acts as though he's sincere and wants to help the country, wants to help his state, then they'll react the same way. I can't root out every little evil thought in the FBI. I have known many people over the years who have become FBI agents, and believe me, when they enter the FBI, they're outstanding citizens. They're bright, they're in good physical shape, and they're forward thinking. They love America.
So that would be sort of what, if we got the FBI here in Maryland, it would be a huge boost. Are there other agencies that you think we could get to relocate into the state? Well,
I can't make any predictions as to what other agencies might move in, but I would work. Look, both my parents were federal workers. My dad worked for 40 years in the Congressional Research Service in the Library of Congress. My mother worked for the National Institutes of Health and the Naval Medical Center. I grew up in a family of federal workers. My brother worked for the federal government. So he worked for GSA. So, any opening that I could see, and I would be constantly aware of any potential moves, any disgruntled agency heads that might want to move their agency, and I would extol the attributes of Maryland and would bring in to support me many of the Maryland officials who could also give a good presentation as to why Maryland should be home to the federal government, because so far I think we've provided pretty well for the federal government here in Maryland.
So, you got another one, Mark?
Well, I was just going to follow up on economic issues. I mean, one of the issues that we'll be facing in 2025 will be the tax relief bill that was passed in 2018 that cut most people's taxes. Basically, that expires and it comes up for renewal. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, I'm for supporting tax relief for our citizens. Right? I think that the cost of consumer goods since President Biden has been in office, cost of consumer goods has increased about 17%. The wages haven't kept up with that. So I'm all in favor of providing tax relief. When I ran for governor, I was in favor of cutting the state sales tax 2 cents, which would have saved every family $780 a year. And the legislature just made very tiny nibbles at tax relief this past year. They gave some relief to veterans, but they could have given relief to each and every Marylander because we had a good sized surplus. And I'm in favor of tax relief. I've placed all these ballot measures on the ballot year after year to limit property tax increases. So I think that's a pretty good indicator as to what I would do in the future.
In terms of foreign policy, one of the issues or approaches you mentioned on your website is peace through strength. So, seeing as how many international blunders it seems the Biden administration has gotten us into over the past couple of years, how would you help to restore our standing as a military force across the world?
Well, I have a honorable discharge from the U.S. Army. I attended the United States Military Academy, although I didn't graduate from the United States Military Academy. My father-in-law was Lieutenant General Joseph Heiser. He was in charge of logistics for the U.S. Army for the Vietnam War, was on Westmoreland's staff. I believe in peace through strength, and I'll certainly provide the funding so that we can face the China adversary, which is moving into Cuba, moving into Brazil, moving into South America in many places. I think we have to also pre-arm Taiwan rather than wait as we did in Ukraine, wait for the Russians to come in. We have to make sure that they're armed ahead of time to act as a deterrent. I think that our U.S. Navy needs strengthening. China has more ships now than we do, and I think that needs some boosting. I think there are economies to be made certainly in the armed forces budget, but we can't be pushed around. Why has Joe Biden delayed sending F-16s to Ukraine? Why are these pilots just being trained now? That should have happened well over a year ago, and maybe the war would have ended by now.
So what are your thoughts about including the Ukraine in NATO?
Well, then we don't want to be drawn into a war with Russia. And of course, as a member of NATO, we would be obligated to support them in every way possible. I think that a delay there in that decision is worthwhile, but we should continue to aid them with munitions. And I think it's going to be very difficult for them to win, for the Ukrainians to win that war when they can't attack the Russian supply lines just out of Ukraine. So I would support them militarily. I know that there needs to be an audit, however, of the money that we're sending there, because I'm hopeful that all that money is going to munitions and fighting equipment, but I can't be sure until I see an audit.
So let's talk a little bit about the First and Second Amendments, both seemingly under attack from the left. How would you approach, and you can tackle each amendment separately, but how would you approach as a senator legislation to protect those two amendments?
Well, I've supported the First Amendment in many ways already. I won the lawsuit that was filed against the Park and Planning Commission, which disallowed petition gathering and campaigning in the park system of Prince George's and Montgomery County. And I had supported the ACLU there, and they had to change that regulation, which disallowed such campaigning. I'm very much for freedom of religion, for freedom of the press, and for having a robust discussion of the issues, all political issues. That's how I was brought up. My dad worked in the Congressional Research Service. He would bring home the Congressional Record when it was printed at that time, and he would show me, here, you see this speech written by this senator on this subject? He would say, I wrote that speech. And then we'd turn through the Congressional Record and we'd see another speech written by a different senator on the opposite side of the same subject. And he would say, I wrote that speech too. I know there are two sides to every question, and I believe in robust, free discussion. And I also believe in having lots of debates for the U.S. Senate. So I hope that people don't get shy after the primary.
I'm wondering, Robin, if he wasn't part of the deep state before there was a deep state, if he was writing both sides of the debate simultaneously.
Well, you have to understand that there's at least two
Yes.
sides to every question. When you're in court, you don't want to have the defendant there without an attorney while the prosecutor is trying to prosecute him.
No, I think I was being facetious, but because I think that that's an important thing to remember in this, polarized society, that there is this, there are two sides to these questions, and it's a healthy conversation to be having that debate.
So in terms of the Second Amendment, you have it, as usual, coming under attack from the left because they're claiming that we need stricter gun laws to curb all the violence going on, when really I'd rather see a lot of good people with guns rather than bad people getting them anyway. So what kind of legislation can you propose that would help to protect our Second Amendment rights?
Well, I think the laws are on the books now to protect our Second Amendment rights, and I think that the state of Maryland has been a little bit loose in its constitutional opinions about what's law and what isn't. I think that the laws are on the books now to protect Second Amendment rights, and I would vote that way because that's why it's in the Constitution.
Let me ask a question a little closer to home, and perhaps not a Senate question, but I think kind of reflects the tenor of our times. I'm sure you've noticed that Councilman Evan Glass has set up a anti-hate task force, and he has invited a cross-section of groups, a representative of groups, to come and participate on that. What are your thoughts? What's the strategy to deal with these things, these problems of, Montgomery County had been this bastion of tolerance, and now apparently it's a center of a hate crime.
Yeah, well, I think that Evan Glass, who's a very bright guy, I like him personally. I think he should come out in favor of letting K-3 parents opt out when they want to. He should make a public statement. I'm opposed to hate statements, and he's president of the council. He's entitled to make up any little committee that he wants to and have people talking to each other. I think he means well, and that's fine with me. But I think that he should include all parts of the population of Montgomery County, including having some vociferous Republicans on that committee, perhaps like the people interviewing me in this program.
So once you're in the Senate, what would be the first bill you'd want to file? What's number one priority on your list?
The day in there, I would go and see the Nuclear Regulatory Commission and see what we can do to get that Calvert Cliffs plant expanded in Maryland. I know they tried to do so in 2010, but it was rejected because there was some foreign money coming in from France, I believe. Once we do that, that provides a gigantic input of clean energy to our state, and it will provide it will cut down the cost of electricity. It will provide tax incentives. It will provide jobs. And that would be one of the very first things I would do. And I would also let it be known that I'm there to bring some good business, good jobs into Maryland. And I would go around and seek to talk to the people from Apple and Google and Facebook and Microsoft and Intel and try to get them to at least consider our state. Whereas now it just seems to me that they're shunning Maryland. The big companies, Samsung, Texas Instruments, Toyota, Taiwan Semiconductor, Nucor Steel, they're shunning Maryland. You know that Nucor Steel just made the largest private investment in West Virginia history. They should have made it in Allegheny or Garrett County, where we desperately need the jobs. I would let it be known that I am there to bring jobs to Maryland. I would go around. I'm very outgoing. I've met over 50,000 people on the boardwalk in Ocean City. I'm not shy. I would go and talk to these behemoths, these industry leaders, and about the state of Maryland. I would take them down to the Capitol Hill and give them some bean soup or crab soup if they have some of that. And we talk about bringing jobs to Maryland. I am not going to be. I remember very well the campaign slogan of the guy who was running against Sheriff Offutt. Okay, his slogan was "Get off it." And when I'm down there on Capitol Hill, I'm going to get off it. I'm not going to be sitting around. I'm going to be active and soliciting help for our state and the good people of our state.
So if those businesses push back and say, well, your state's not very business friendly, how would you negotiate with Governor Moore to say, hey, we need to make Maryland more business friendly, so I'm doing all this negotiating, we can bring these businesses in?
I'd set up a meeting with him. I'd have him down to my office and take him to lunch and have him meet with these industry leaders. You know, he's somewhat flexible. I get along with him, and I think that we'd have a good working relationship. And I think he would welcome bringing some jobs into Maryland. That would increase his tax base, and he wouldn't have to worry about how he's going to pay for some of his projects.
Apropos of nothing, I noticed that one of the few regulatory agencies in the government that's located in Maryland is the Nuclear Regulatory Commission.
Yeah, it's and we have NASA there too.
Well, we have obviously NSA, NASA, and NIH are all massive presence in the state.
And they're going to have a chair for me down there because I'm going to be visiting them regularly, especially during that 100 days out of the 260 everyone else is working when the Senate's off. I'm going to be down there visiting these people, convincing them to come and expand in Maryland. I am not going to be sitting around or taking trips down to the Caribbean. I'm going to be down there on the Hill working hard for our state.
So as we come up towards the close of the show, are there any other topics that you didn't get to talk about that you wanted to cover, Robin?
Well, let's see. The Chesapeake Bay, we've got to protect that. We've had a lot of sewage spills, a lot of leaky sewage plants that have been leaking for many years into our Chesapeake Bay, and the seagrasses have been going away, and the oyster and crab populations have been diminishing. We need to plug up these sewage treatment plants, and I'll have an emergency hotline for people to call me if they see a problem. They call me, and then I will act on it immediately. And here's another thing I'm going to do, okay? Because I know that many people consider U.S. senators to be unapproachable or they can't find them. Every Monday morning at 6 a.m., I'm going to have an open house, first come, first serve, for Marylanders to come and talk to me about problems they might have, how they've been discriminated against, how they can improve our state. And if you have a problem, come down to Capitol Hill and see me, and I'll have some of my staff there. We'll start the week off nice and early, and we'll listen to what you have to say. And I think that I'll pick up a lot of good ideas and certainly have some early risers down there giving me suggestions. I can't think of everything, but I think that the people of Maryland put together can come down and talk to me, and we're very flexible. You know, the wires in my mind are not down. They're operating. I'm looking forward, not backward. And if you have an ideas to improve our state, come down early Monday morning and we'll talk to you about it.
So now if the public doesn't go to see you on Monday morning, how about Ocean City? Will they be able to still find you on the boardwalk?
Well, I'd rather be there than in Rehoboth. That's for sure.
I'm sorry, Robin. That's the best answer you've given all night. Is that one?
Having spent so much time there on the boardwalk meeting to find people, in 2 hours, I can meet people from all 23 counties plus Baltimore City. Having spent so much time there, I know that Ocean City is an economic boom town for the state of Maryland. We have to be able to get people in and out of Ocean City. It's the second largest town in Maryland during the summer. So, I'll be happy to meet people there when I go on vacation. That's where I'll be. And I'll take you on if you're feeling energetic, I'll take you on a nice bike ride for 12 miles at 7 a.m. in the morning, which is what I do every morning when I'm there.
You got a lot more energy than I do.
I was going to say, I think a lot of us can't keep up with you, Robin. That would be a real problem.
Well, I'm afraid that I may be having to keep up with President Kamala Harris. And a lot of people think, well, we have Harris there in the Senate. And if there's a close vote, Harris is going to break the tie from Maryland. They think it's Andy Harris. It's not. It's Kamala Harris. We need some Republicans in the U.S. Senate. The vote is very close, and we can make a difference for our state.
So we're at the point of our show where we get to plug anything we need to plug. Do you have anything you want to plug, Robin, about your campaign, where you're going to be coming up? Where can people find you?
Well, just how people can contribute to you.
Yes.
Well, just go to Robin Ficker for USSenate.com. You can contribute that way. We have a fundraising letter which is going out, I think last night or whatever. It's going around the state. So you'll see that. But nevertheless, or just call me on my phone, 301-919-9068. I'll be glad to talk to you. I'm not hiding from anyone.
Awesome. And coming from the state party side, I know Dwight had a little bit of a chance to plug the Bob Ehrlich dinner, which is going to be taking place on October 12th. Look out soon for more information on that. Mark, you have anything you want to plug?
Well, I was going to say, I think we'll be putting together a table for that. I have no doubt that Robin has already got that date down on his calendar as well. And we're really looking forward to an exciting event. In fact, so exciting that I think today we ended up upgrading the size of the hotel because of
it's going to be a really big show. A
really big show. And I also know that the governor is really excited about participating on that. So that's a great thing.
Well, he's a wonderful guy. They had the Intercounty Connector named after him because he pushed it through, and he's saving people hundreds of hours every month because of that road.
Yeah,
absolutely.
On my capacity, changing hats for a second as YR chairman. Everyone who's watching who attended our crab feast this weekend, thank you so much for attending. It was an amazing event. We already have people asking about how they can get ready to attend next year. The people who missed out on it had some serious FOMO. And next up for the YRs, we're working on a legislative summit, the first time we've ever done that, out in Western Maryland in Garrett County. And that's going to be coming up in October as well, right after Governor Bob's dinner. So definitely you can come out and join us after that to talk about how we can be more effective during session, what bills are going to be important for us coming up. So we'd love to see you out there as well. And yeah, Robin, thank you so much for joining us. I think you've given us a lot to think about, a lot of great ideas coming out of the Ficker campaign. Mark, thank you as always for co-hosting with me. And thank you everyone for watching. We'll be back next week.
I feel like I've been in great company.
You have.